Welcome back to the Shibaroo Studios YouTube channel. My name is Jonathan and this is the weekly Draw This in Your Style challenge video. So welcome back to the channel if you've been here before. If you haven't, my name is Jonathan. I upload 3 videos a week where I share my artwork and a little bit of my journey as I try to get back into art. This video in particular is our weekly Draw This in Your Style challenge video, where we take a piece of work by another illustrator and we reproduce it into our own illustration style. However, this week it was a little bit different. I had contacted the illustrator of the piece of work that I wanted to feature on the show this week, as I always do, just to make sure that they're okay with me showing their work and having it up on the YouTube channel and talking a little bit about it. However, they didn't get back to me in time and I needed to get started on something. So I took that as an opportunity to do something that I wanted to do anyway for a little while, which was, instead of reproducing the work of another artist who had put up their Draw This in Your Style challenge, I decided to take something from pop culture and reproduce that in my own style. So as I said, this was something that I wanted to do for quite a while. I have a lot of interests in pop culture and different characters that I really wanted to illustrate in my own style, but with all the content that we do up here on my own schedule, squeezing it in just wasn't something that I really had time for in my schedule. So this was a perfect opportunity for me to go and do one of these characters. And the first that I was going to do, I absolutely have wanted to do this since the series dropped a few months ago, was the new depiction of Wednesday Addams from the Netflix series Wednesday. So we're going to jump in straight away to a quick little time lapse of me actually producing the piece. And then when we get back, I'll sit down, I'll talk a little bit about the piece, things that I liked about it, things that I might have found difficult, and just what I felt about the whole process in general. that was my quick little time lapse of my process of creating this illustration. In terms of the final piece, I was very happy with the final piece. I really like what we came up with. I had a lot of fun doing it, but it wasn't all plain sailing. There were issues that I encountered with this illustration that I hadn't encountered up until this point, so I kind of had to play around with different ways of showing light and shadow in this in order to come up with a solution for the issues I was having. To try and explain it better, a lot of the process that I would use would be getting my initial sketch down, blocking in the main areas of colors, and then going in to add shadow and texture and highlights in order to give a kind of depth and a 3D form to the illustration. With this illustration, obviously Wednesday Addams is a character that's wearing dark clothes. It's very different than a lot of the very bright, vibrant illustrations that I've created up until this point. So straight away, I went in, got my colors done, and as soon as I went to add in the shadow, that's where I hit the first problem. With those dark clothes, when I added shadows in, it just wasn't showing up particularly well. It didn't stand out in the way that I would want the shadow to stand out. In particular, the blazer that the character's wearing in the illustration, it has that, you know, striped pattern to it. And I found that the color of those stripes and the color I was trying to use for the shadow, they were just too similar. And it got to the point where underneath the arm where I'm adding shadow, that shadow just blended into the pattern of the clothes on the character's arm. It became confusing, it became messy, there was no clear definition between arm, body, anything like that, and it just wasn't working. Now, this would be the normal approach that I would take with all my illustrations, so I started having to think outside the box, trying to figure out, well, my normal approach isn't working here. I need to think about something else I can do to make this illustration work. So I started trying lots of different stuff. I was trying to make selections and feather them out quite highly to create almost a gradient to see if that type of shadow might work a little bit better. That didn't really work. And ultimately what I found started to work a little bit better was, instead of focusing on the shadows, to try and focus more on the highlights, areas where light's going to be hitting the fabric and hitting different parts of the body in order to make them stand out. And that's a little bit different because I would add highlights into my work, but normally the highlights that I add they're subtle. I don't do too much of them. It's like a slight touch here and there just to add a little bit of depth to the piece. However, in this one, we needed to focus on it a lot more because the shadows just weren't coming together. So I started selecting larger areas, really, again, feathering out those selections, adding a gradient in that way. And it started to work. I started to get a little bit more form into the pieces, the likes of, as I said, the character's arm. It began to give it a slight 3D feel to it. So we just started going along with that way and started to find a little bit more success. One of the things that I enjoyed in this piece, which was a step from my previous illustration I had uploaded in the art journal video, which we uploaded on Monday, was I spent a little bit of time working on the texture of the fabric in the character's skirt and in the jumper that they're wearing under their blazer. It was very similar to the texturing that I used in the chair that I had used in my previous illustration. Again, it was on the art journal video. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to have a link in the description below, so do go over and check that one out. I was really, really pleased with it. But on the whole, once I started to find these little solutions, the illustration did start to move in the right direction. And ultimately what we ended up with was an illustration that certainly made me learn a few little new tips and techniques in terms of how I can render my characters. And I mean, that's ultimately what you're kind of going for when you're doing any of these draw this in your style challenges. Ultimately, it's an exercise. It's something that you hope to learn from, that you can look at normally in illustration, but in this particular example, it's a piece of promotional work for a TV series, but you're hoping to learn something that you can then implement into future artworks of your own. So I imagine at some point I'll be creating a piece that will use darker colors, and now I've got a little bit more experience in terms of how I can actually convey a certain amount of depth while using darker colors. So I was very happy with the outcome. I mean, this is a character that I absolutely love, so just jumping in and creating it was such a fun thing. I was really happy with how the hair turned out. I was very, very happy with thing on the shoulder. I had a lot of fun doing that. Hands are not something that I particularly enjoy doing, but with a character like Thing, I think you find a lot of joy in it because it is just a lot of fun. Plus, it was really refreshing to do an illustration on something that is a little bit darker than the normal type of stuff that I'm doing. You know, that's certainly a thing that I do love as well. I don't often get to put a lot of it into my illustration just because of the particular themes that I go for. So just getting to tiptoe a little bit into that slightly darker imagery was quite fun, but while still keeping it light and enjoyable, and certainly in my style. I think when you look at this piece and you compare it to any of the other illustrations that I have uploaded over on my Instagram, again, link in the description, do go check it out if you're not over there, it certainly stands side by side with them. But yeah, that is my Wednesday Addams. I'm going to pop up on the screen at the end of this video a little side by side of my illustration and the actual Wednesday Addams promotional image that we produced the illustration from. So do make sure that you're having a little look. You can see the little changes and where I've had to make slight alterations to the color palette. But yeah, I had an awful lot of fun doing this piece, and I definitely think that I want to do a little bit more of those pop culture characters in my style in the future. So I think this video series will kind of alternate. I'll still go back and do the draw this in your style stuff from other artists, but I would absolutely love to jump in and do more pop culture characters too. So if you're watching this, if there are any characters out there that you would like to see me illustrate in my own style, make sure to leave a comment down below. I'll be reading over every single comment. If there's an idea in there that I just love, 100%, I will absolutely get on it, and we will feature it in this video series as we go forward. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the illustration. And we will have another vlog going up live on Sunday, so make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you again